Hey everyone, I'm Kinda Blumberg, and Rachel Hart is here on our Community Connects today, along with Catherine Brunson. And Rachel and I are the co-founders of Reconnected to Life. And Reconnected to Life is redefining what it means to be self-centered and educating about self-care. We believe that when you practice what we call the 4 C's of self-care, eating well, sleeping well, exercise, and meditation, that you are better able to accomplish your personal goals, foster more meaningful relationships, and reconnect with your community. And so today we've got with us Catherine Brunson from Living Foods Atlanta, and we are going to talk all things nutrition. I'm really excited because that is one of my, something I've studied for a really long time, and nutrition is my jam. I just love it. I love learning about food, the science of food, experimenting with food, cooking new foods, all of those things. So I'm really excited to have you here today, Catherine.
Excited to be here.
Catherine is the founder of Living Foods Atlanta, and she is going to tell us a little bit more about that. So go ahead, Catherine, tell us about it.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'm happy to share, and am very passionate about nutrition. A little bit about my story was I did the Living Foods Institute, which was like a 10-day school here in Atlanta. I think since I've done it, it's been sold or it's not currently open. But I knew from a very young age, like maybe my mid-20s, that nutrition was just something that I don't know, was curious about, passionate about. And I also, the founder of Living Foods Institute, I know they're very similar names, but the Living Foods Institute founder, Brenda Cobb, she healed herself from cancer through diet and nutrition. And so for some reason, intuitively in my 20s, and maybe I was in my early 30s at that point, I just knew that I would probably choose like nutrition to heal my body if I ever did have a health crisis. So that was, I think, part of the drive and curiosity to just learn about people who had done that journey. And I mean, obviously I know, you know, on social media, I try to be careful about saying that, you know, too much that it, you know, about diseases and stuff like that. But I do think that if you're dealing with any kind of health crisis, you know, what you give your body, whatever you feed your body gives your body that extra energy and level to fight off any kind of, you know, whatever it's kind of dealing with. So, so anyway, so I did that about 10 years ago, just out of curiosity. And it really, it kind of like stuck with me, like, oh my gosh, like I want to live a life like this. I felt better. Like in the 10-day program, they teach you like the whole process of living and sprouting foods. And so you do, it is kind of like a detox. I mean, it was pretty tough initially, like kind of just getting your body clean like that. But once I was through the process, I felt amazing. I was just like, I don't know, my depression went away. I felt, you know, I mean, I've always been relatively active. So weight wasn't a, you know, something that I was, but it was more about like my mental and emotional state that was huge for me, having a clean diet. So fast forward to 2020, and you know, I don't know, I had another business that was, you know, working with children, but that was impacted from COVID. And so I kind of went inside. I'm a meditator as well, and have done you know, some meditation retreats and stuff like that. But I thought, what would, like, kind of like, what's the universe trying to bring forward through this time? And between my daughter and myself, who's a big advocate for living food, she's like, you should start a living foods business. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that's kind of where, you know, that's kind of where I've came from, and what brought me to this point, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah, totally. That answered the question. And I love how you turned to meditation to kind of figure out what was the next step for you, and what was the next move, and made that pivot. And yeah, Rachel and I, when we talk about nutrition, and nutrition as one of the 4 C's of self-care, What we say with that and in every aspect of self-care is that we know because we know, not because we know better. And so it's really about incorporating more real food into your diet versus fad diets and whatever the next best, diet is to, to lose weight and that sort of thing. It's making more of a shift in being in awareness about the food that you're putting into the body and the fact that food is nourishment and it is alive if it's real food.
Yeah. Well, and I think that was, like one of the things to, to maybe kind of clarify and explain what living foods is that all of my juices and smoothies have sprouted ingredients in them. So sunflower sprouts and sprouted lentils and sprouted mung beans and pea sprouts. And so the science behind sprouting any kind of a plant or a seed is that you get the most concentrated nutritional value from the plant and the sprout, right? So if your body, is dealing with any kind of, uh, whatever immune things, or if you just want to feel like alive and nourished on a cellular level, sprouted foods, it's kind of like how spinach, how people would add spinach to their smoothies like, 10 years ago, right? So now I feel like sprouted food is like kind of like the next level of nutrition that you can give your body. And sunflower sprouts and mung beans and lentils have tons of protein in them, so it's a great way to get protein in your body, to build muscle and to be active and to what I'm saying, how like people can get like brain fog and stuff like that. So it has a lot of ingredients in it that promote like total body wellness, like no matter what you're what you're trying to accomplish in your body. It's such a cellular level, it's like just the optimal thing that you can give to yourself, for sure, for nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
Can we go back a little bit, Catherine, and just for educational purposes to clarify, sprouted foods is what? What are living foods? Are you saying that it's like you plant something as a seed and when it sprouts, that's sprouted food? When it's
correct,
a baby?
the little babies, yeah.
It's like when you're saying that, it reminds me of how people always say, like baby copperheads are the most poisonous.
Yeah.
Like baby sprouted foods have the most concentrated nutrition. Would that be
correct.
a good analogy?
Yeah, it's the perfect analogy. That's really, yeah, it's so true. And so for a little bit of the science behind that. So sunflower sprouts are optimally grown in like like a like the plastic planters that you get, from Home Depot. And I happen to have a gentleman who really brought sprouts and wheatgrass to Atlanta. His name is Vonnie, and he's at his prime, he was, I think, growing thousands of pounds of sunflower sprouts. But anyway, he has a greenhouse, a sanitary greenhouse. So I have a good relationship with him. So I actually buy my sunflower sprouts from him. And he's like a total nutrition nerd too. And he's like, I've had my sunflower sprouts tested against other ones that you can sometimes buy at like Whole Foods. And he goes, they have, I think it's like 60% more chlorophyll than, some of the other ones at the grocery store. So the sunflower sprouts I do get from a grower, and they're all organic. And anyway, and you can even go into like the kind of dirt that, it's all organic, composted dirt, because obviously the seeds get nourishment from the dirt. And that's another thing that's, I think, what they say is missing in our current diet, as in America, is that the soil that the vegetables are grown in is so depleted that a lot of times the plants and stuff that we actually eat and get at the grocery store doesn't have those like trace minerals, because the dirt's just been so overworked, from farming, industrial farming and stuff like that. So the sunflower sprouts come from him, and then the mung beans and the lentils you can actually sprout in like a mason jar. So I always have a continual kind of supply of those sprouts going on, you know, that are, and I had thought about at some point maybe doing just like a little lunch and learn or like a class, and you can even Google how to sprout lentils and mung beans. And it's even something
That would
where,
be a good idea though, to do something like that for one of our workshops.
yeah, I
Yeah,
would be
I
happy
love that.
to. Yeah. And in fact, you know, out of this, I had a girl reach out to me from New York, and she's like, please, can you just come bring me a cleanse and teach me how to do it? And I was like, of course, right? So I flew there, you know, and I taught her everything, you know, because it's like it's meant to be shared. And the whole part of my business is its convenience, right? But if somebody's really passionate and wants to learn, I will totally, you know, teach them, show them, you know, all of that, because I'm really about, you know, all people having access to good food. So, but yes, back to the whole sprouted concept or science, you know, it is literally the best. You could even Google, like, when you sprout mung and lentil beans, or something about when you soak the seed, and then, because like mung and lentils sometimes give people like gas or kind of stomach you know, problems, but there's a actual enzyme that gets released when you soak the seed, and then the little shell starts to come off and the sprout comes out. Whatever's released in that enzyme process makes it easier to digest, so you're getting the protein and the nourishment from the sprout, and then it's easier to digest because it's actually whatever enzyme process has happened in the sprouting has made it easier to digest, if
Is
that
that
makes sense.
true for nuts as well? Do you know?
I think so. So I do make my own almond milk, and you soak the seeds for 12 hours. And I think it's same thing. It does do something. Now with the almonds, when you sprout them, and what's interesting about almonds, you can get raw almonds, but they're still pasteurized. So they've
Yeah.
still been, you know,
So
heated
that's
to a
what I
point.
wanted to ask, because I will buy raw almonds, but I actually feel on those days where if I'm doing like a Whole30, nuts are like a huge go-to snack throughout the day. I'll feel more bloated on
Mm.
those days than if I'm not on Whole30 eating milk products or something like that. And I had a client tell me that it was because the almonds still weren't sprouted, even though raw.
Mm.
So
Interesting.
am I saying that correctly?
Yeah. Yeah, even though they're raw. So like it's, yeah, so when you soak it, and I'll have to do a little bit of research about this, but when you soak it, even though the almond doesn't actually grow a sprout, because like we said, it's been pasteurized, even though it's raw. I do think it probably does something on the enzyme level to decrease the gas and bloating that you're talking about. And it's
Mm.
the same thing with walnuts. What's crazy, you can actually make like walnut meat. So you soak the walnuts, you know, grind them up in like a little food processor, add like a little bit of like, even like taco seasoning, and it literally tastes like taco meat. It's
Mm-hmm.
awesome, you know.
I
So
love
any kind of nut, yeah, that you can, yeah, there's just kind of really cool things that you can do with nuts, but they can produce gas just like mung and lentils and stuff like that if they're not, I don't say if they're not, but prepared right, they're easier to digest, would be a
Before
better
I
way to say
forget
that.
this question too, the idea of not getting your protein by eating plant-based, what say you about that? And then as far as protein from meat anyway, just, I know it's opinion, and of course none of this stuff is meant to diagnose or be taken as, you know,
Medical
in all,
advice.
y'all always consult your physician, and if it doesn't feel right, then certainly don't do it. But I would like to know your opinion about eating meat in general to get your protein, and are you lacking anything if you're just getting it all plant-based?
Um, so what I've learned and studied, right, is that um, your body has only so many uh, energy units per day to digest food, to make your heart work, your brain, kidneys, all that, right? So if you're giving it cooked food, mostly meat, because it's really hard to digest, your body has to take those energy units away from doing regular other processes to digest the food. And meat and canned food and heavily cooked food and oils and stuff like that are really hard to digest. So if you're if you're really trying to get to an optimal level of health and wellness and just, being kind of like, I can't think of the right word for that, but you know how like when you have a clean diet, you feel like aware and you're just alert. I guess that would be the right
Clarity.
word. So yeah, clarity. That's it. Thank you.
Mhm.
So yeah, you can get all the protein that you need from plants without eating meat. Like in my 3-day cleanse, you're getting 28 grams of protein just from the 3 smoothies and the 3 celery juices. The celery juices don't have any protein, but the 16 ounces of smoothies that have the mung, lentils, and sprouts have 28 grams of protein. You know what I'm saying? So, and I don't know what the average daily recommended protein intake is. And of course, if you're working out and lifting weights, it's like there's a whole, but yeah, there is protein in it and you can supplement it. And I do believe that you can, get just as much protein from a plant, if you do it correctly, than you can from chicken or beef. And that whole, and, and I'm not a vegetarian or a vegan, but even if you just look at the global impact, they say that, for a vegetarian per year, it's something like 3 acres. And for a meat eater per year, it's like 300 acres. So if you just look at just, and I don't want to get, too much into that either, but,
What do you
but
mean?
yeah,
What do you mean by that?
well, meaning like if you're a meat eater, they say that to sustain a meat eater, it's an average of 300 acres of impact per year to maintain the meat, to sustain a meat eater, like, in America. And I don't know if that means eating chicken or beef every night. I don't know what that means. And then if you're a vegetarian, to sustain a vegetarian for the year, it's only a 3 acre, yeah, is that what I'm saying? Yeah,
You
300.
For the year, like to
got a
feed
lighter
somebody.
footprint.
Yeah, footprint. Yeah. So meaning like to sustain, like if you were to, deliver, or if I were to eat all year, my footprint for the year would be like something like 3 acres. And then if I were a meat eater, it would be 300. It's massive, So if you look at the impact on your body and just how much more difficult it is for it to digest meat, and then just, the other impacts of, on the planet and stuff like that. So, but yes, you can get enough protein. And then if you're working out, obviously you could always add soaked nuts and stuff like that. And that's what I tell people. Like, I do, I have people, do the cleanse, like, I'm so hungry. And I'm like, but you can supplement it with, like some carrots and hummus, or, like some soaked nuts and stuff like that. And all those things have protein in them, I guess what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was going to ask you a little bit more about mung beans, because I'm not super familiar with mung beans. So what can you tell me about the mung beans? That's one of the things that you sprout, you said, the mung and lentil beans, but I've never cooked mung beans. So what can you tell us about that?
Look, yeah, and I don't know that I'll be able to answer that in a super detailed way, but when I was at the Living Foods Institute, mung and lentils, were just kind of like their go-to, and I think they're one of the higher protein beans. So I think that's why they pointed us in that direction, because the of the beans, mung, lentils have the highest protein content. And of the sprouts, because like if you think about sprouts, there's alfalfa sprouts and there's bean sprouts, but the sunflower sprouts and the pea sprouts are the highest protein sprouts. So I think when we went through the institute, that's where they were just trying to focus, for the very question that Rachel asked, is that protein is super important, especially if you're vegan or vegetarian. You just want to make sure you're getting enough of that to nourish your body and build muscle and keep your bones strong, and all that. So and what I would say too is, at the end, if you guys post, I have lots of resources and links that, for people who are curious, that I can send, that people can read, like a lot about it, and like I said, how to sprout them and stuff like that I can send to you guys as far as additional resources.
Cool. So So you mentioned that you're not a vegan or a vegetarian. So I'm just curious, like, what's your personal diet like?
um, well, I would say it's probably 80% vegetarian, and but I will do fish, and I don't do beef or pork. And I'm not like anti, I'm not like that. So I'm trying to think. Like I cooked a dish for my girlfriend the other night, right? And she's like, I really want some meatballs, right? So, I made her some meatballs, which is fine. And and of course I ate a couple too, just to make sure they were good. So I'm not like super strict. But I would say 80% is vegetables, and then the other 20% is fish, and maybe 5% is meat. But I'm not super, religious or strict. Yeah.
Mhm. And what has been the shift for you? How has your diet shifted over the years, and what have you noticed with that shift?
Um, well, for me, I would say it's probably it would probably be like depression, like mental and not that it just I feel like when I eat like that, or even when I take the extra little steps, it
Hmm.
just helps me mentally and emotionally feel better. I don't know. I just it's never I don't want to say it's never been, but I've always been about like what you guys stand for, the four pillars. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I feel like it's total wellness. Um it's never just one thing. And so I feel like for me the drive for nutrition and sharing kind of what I've created with people is just to have them feel better, to
Hmm.
have a happier, more energetic life, and if,
And that's
drinking
what
a couple,
we say, when you feel better, you do better. Basically,
oh,
that's it. And everything
yeah.
that we do with the 4 seeds of self care, all of it is conducive to creating a healthier brain. So it all is about brain function. When you're eating better, sleeping better, meditating regularly, exercising regularly, none of it is about external, but all about what happens with your brain function, which then automatically, because you feel better, you are doing better personally. Your relationships are better because you're in a better mood. And so you're bringing your best self to your relationships and to any of your community work that you're doing as well. So, what was the catalyst for you? What brought you even to the Living Foods Institute? How did you end up saying, something's got to give?
Yeah, it's so funny. Like I don't know. I just intuitively knew I wanted to do it, or not that I don't do shoulds, but like I was just drawn to it. And what's interesting about it, my mom was actually um, going through breast cancer at that time, and she ended up doing the class with me. For personal reasons, she just said, if I get sick again, I don't know that I would do the, chemo and radiation treatments again. That was just her personal choice. And I just kind of knew inside too that um, I don't know. I've always been this person that's curious about like optimal health, whether it's like meditation or nutrition or, knowing your soul's purpose. I don't know. I've just always been that kind of person. I just was just deeply curious. And then, like I said, kind of going through the 10-day process or 10-day school, what was huge for me, I think that's probably kept me with the living foods currently still in my life, is that it really helped with my mental clarity and the mental depression, which I don't think I really realized. And it wasn't like I was really unhealthy before, but I think once I went through that 10-day program, I realized, holy cow, I can like feel like alert and and even if it's 10% more happy, it's totally worth it. I don't know where my happiness level was at that point, but it was just a really cool experience, and it was just something that called to me. I don't know, it was like a passion. So not funny, but yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. I was going to ask you, so for somebody who's never had living food, who's never had a living food smoothie or juice, but is interested in improving their diet, how do you make it accessible to somebody who's just never done this before, but just knows that they're, they can up their nutrition game or just needs to make a change with their nutrition? Talk about that.
So you mean like making simple, like adding simple things, right, to
Yeah,
do?
where should
Yeah.
somebody start if they've never had living food smoothies, juices, they just, eat, your standard American diet, and they're like, I don't feel energetic. I feel like I'm tired, because a lot of people are tired so often. They don't necessarily like connect it with food. So like, what's a good starting place for somebody?
For that, I would say that I love Google, right? But there are tons of like online free resources that people can start with. And like um, y- even if you're going to just make like a smoothie at home, like you just, go to your produce store, you're like, okay, I've got a little bit of spinach, I maybe have an apple, a cucumber, and um and like I said, this, like, learning to sprout the mung beans and lentils are super easy. You soak them for 8 hours, and it does take a couple days for them to grow, but and they're super affordable. Like, so it's not even like an expensive thing to do. So even if you took like just sprouting a little batch of lentils or mung beans weekly and just adding them into your salad or adding them into a smoothie, they literally don't have much flavor at all. So you could blend them up, sprinkle them on, eat a handful on the go. There's so many simple, affordable things that you can just start doing. And I think starting is the biggest thing. I think sometimes people think, oh my gosh, like I have to have this fancy blender, or I have to
Yeah.
have a grow house, or whatever they think. But like I said, it's um yeah, even just the little things. Sprouting is super simple, super affordable. So that's what I would say is just, and even if you just, replaced a breakfast, or, did a lunch smoothie, or, you know,
But you
made a
have
little
those
salad.
things already ready to go for people as well. Like if they
Yeah.
wanted to start with a meal replacement, I mean, is that where you would say maybe start there with one of my
Oh yeah. With
products?
my, yeah, for sure. So, I didn't realize that's where we were. I
You
mean,
don't
cause
want
you can,
anybody to jump into a 3-day cleanse necessarily who's never
right.
done any.
Yeah, that would be right. That would be intimidating. I
Yeah.
mean, but for some people, I would say it's kind of like when I did the Living Foods Institute. So I will say to all the people that are listening, if it calls to you, you can do it, right? Because I did it for 10 days. It was like, holy cow. It was hard, but it was awesome. And for the people who, right, just want to have a little taste of it or start, I have a couple of different options. So first of all, I do deliver free in the metro Atlanta area. So I don't have a storefront, and I have a couple of different things. I do have a 3-day cleanse, which, if that calls to you, it's 6 bottles of juice a day. You drink lots of water. It'll totally detox your body. I do have like a meal replacement, which I suggest starting with, because what I feel like is like even the small changes are huge. You know what I'm saying? You just start getting in the little habits of doing things here and there. And it's awesome because you just grab and go, and you know that you're getting like literally a complete meal. You don't have to worry about, oh my gosh, did I get, a serving of vegetables? Did I get enough protein? You just grab a bottle and drink it in the car, or drink it on your Zoom meetings or whatever. So the meal replacement is it is 12 bottles for 3 days. So basically it would be like a breakfast and a lunch for 3 days that you would replace, or you could actually squeeze it out to about 4 days. My products, like literally the day I deliver, I make them. And so they're super fresh, and they have a shelf life of about 4 to 5 days. So I always tell people, like, if you're going to order from me, make sure to order on the day that you think you'll start doing meal replacements or the cleanse, just so it's the freshest and you get the most nutritional value. So I have that, I have the 3-day meal, and then I started a new like monthly program where I would deliver 8 juices a week. It's 2 smoothies and 6 of the celery juices. And that's more of like a 1 meal a day, meal replacement thing. And I would deliver every week 8 juices. And what I'm also doing in that monthly program is that if they do, after they get, like the, taste of the smoothies and juices, if they want to do a cleanse, I'll give them the cleanse at 50% off, as being a monthly member. So there's a little bit of an incentive there. So there's a couple of different things for people, like whatever level they like. If they want to just do 1 meal, the monthly, and I could obviously break it up into a week if they're just like, I don't want to do a month, I just want to do a week, but yeah, I'll customize it. And
can you
and
talk
the other
more about oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, you're fine. Well, I was going to say, I've had a couple of people, I try not to get too much into customization, but I've had some people who had like an avocado allergy, if you can, so I left the avocado out. I had, I had another person that wanted me to leave something out. And then somebody that wanted me to add cilantro, which actually tasted really good in the smoothie. But yeah, so I can do, because I'm still small enough that I can do kind of boutique things. And then if people order from me, I send them all the ingredients that I put in there. I send them all the nutritional statistics or, stats or whatever that, so they kind of know if they're active, like what to kind of plan on as far as, nourishment wise and calorie wise and stuff like that. So
before I forget, the Facebook page is beautiful.
oh, thank you.
So impressed and excited to talk to you just based on the pictures. Not only how beautiful the pictures are, but also the educational component in your post made me excited about the live foods just by reading the benefits through your posts. So you're doing a great job with that. I really loved that.
Thank you.
And I just talk about a cleanse now, the benefit of a cleanse. Why would anybody want to do that to themselves?
That's funny.
It's, I feel like your body's a vessel. It's like your mind. And since you guys are big meditation advocates, you'll know that it's like your body's a muscle. I mean, it's lots of different muscles like your mind is, right? And so I feel like a cleanse is like something that reboots you and then kind of reintegrates, because I think with our bodies, we take for granted like what they do for us, and we, just kind of, I don't know. I think the cleanse is just like a good reset. And yes, naturally you'll have cravings. But what I tell people is that it's 6 bottles and 6 bottles a day. So basically, and I tell them to drink 6 glasses of water. And the idea is that if your stomach never gets empty of liquids, you should be able to keep the hunger at bay. So basically you'd wake up, you'd have, you'd have a, like an, 16 ounce glass of water. And then at 9 a.m. you'd have a celery juice. Now there's no rhyme or reason to like what you do when, and then at 10 o'clock you'd have a smoothie. And then at 11 o'clock you'd have another 16 ounce glass of water. And then at, noon you'd have a celery juice. And at 1 you'd have a smoothie, and 2 you'd have water, like that. Right. So if you look at the 6 plus the 6 glasses of water, it kind of gets you through every hour of the day. You're cleansing your body. What I find is that usually by day 2 is when the cravings kick in, and you're like, oh my gosh, I want a piece of bread or, a piece of candy, whatever. And so the second day is typically the hardest. And then by the 3rd day, you're starting to kind of feel like energized again. So it's usually the second day that's a little bit trickier. And what I always tell people, like I said, it's not, follow your body, like what it's saying. Like if you're doing the cleanse and you're just starving, have a handful of nuts, just, if you're going to stick with the cleanse, just try to make smart choices if you are going to have, because some people just like the texture of chewing something, just to kind of get through that, that initial craving. So, so I have suggestions and stuff like that for people who, but yeah, it's a great reset. It's just it's a great place to reset for sure.
what about when you reintroduce food? Is that something like that you should be careful about? Like in my mind, it's like your body deserves this rest, and that's what you're cleansing, right? You're cleansing from your body just working on maximum overdrive all the time, digesting everything that we're always cramming in our mouths. But then after you've gone through this, is there any way you should start to reintroduce food, maybe in a lighter way? Or like, do you just go out for, tacos and margaritas and rice and beans right after?
Well, I wouldn't suggest that after 3 days, because your stomach will definitely not, uh, it'll give you a fit for sure. So, uh,
And how often do you recommend a cleanse?
um, ideally, I would say probably once a month. Like if you were just like super, um, like, I don't want to say dedicated, but if you were just really committed to doing something kind of really good for your body in 2021, I would say once a month. And they even say that, like even in the Living Foods Institute, they suggested, like totally fasting for 1 or 2 days a month, which, and honestly, I know fasting is really good for you, but that's just something that I've personally never bitten off. But again, for people who are really committed, to kind of like wellness at that level, it's great, because like of the example I gave you about meat, your body spends so much of its energy digesting food. It's kind of like, if you use the same analogy with meditation, your mind is constantly just like cranking out like thoughts and judging, and you know what I'm saying? It's just constantly busy. So the more that you can give your body, and your mind a break, it's awesome. It's just that it's a total wellness. So yeah. So after a 3-day cleanse, obviously, I mean, I have a kind of like a suggested food list, of alkaline foods and, things that are, to try to stay away from, and things to, move towards, that are going to be easier for your body to digest. So that's typically what I do when people do a 3-day cleanse. I'm like, yeah, like on the 4th day, right? Don't just run out and, you know, and most people surprisingly don't actually crave that stuff. If they make it to the 4th day, they actually feel lighter, more energetic. It's not like, and I think too, they've done all kinds of studies about how, coming off of sugar, your brain reacts the same as coming off of drugs. So if you just look at the addictive qualities of food in general, if you give your body a break from that, and you can kind of push through those cravings on the 4th day, you, typically they've subsided some. So the longer you can kind of keep it up and just maintain more of a healthy lifestyle, the better you'll feel for sure.
Two things you just touched on, which I really love. One, I love the connection with food and your digestive system as quiet time, just like meditation is quiet time for your mind, and how important that is for us. So I love that connection, because I'd really never thought of like a cleanse like that, or a fast like that, or even just a short fast, or just eliminating foods, kind of giving, your digestive system kind of that quiet time. So I like that. The other thing is, and I'd love for you to touch on a little bit more, is you mentioned your body and how food is alkaline and acidic. And in the typical American diet, we consume a lot of processed foods and meat, which causes our body to be more acidic, which is not very healthy. So I'd love to hear your thoughts a little bit more about that, and how the juicing maybe rebalances a little bit to a healthier alkaline side.
Yeah. Well, and I think they've done, and again, I'll have to pull up some specific articles, so I don't want to quote, things that, but from what I've read, and even at the Living Foods Institute, they do teach that most diseases start in like an acidic environment. So the more alkaline you can make your body, the more like preventative you're going to be, as far as, kind of fighting off diseases and stuff like that. So you know, and other than that, like, yeah, alkalining the body is big, and I do add alkaline water, you know, um, to my smoothies. You know, I have an alkaline water process system thing, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just all I know. I don't really know a lot of details about it other than just I know that disease does start, you know, in like an acid or acidic environment. And you know, and we could get into, I mean, I actually do a lot of wheatgrass too. I have like a little wheatgrass grinder. I I don't offer it to my clients, but if clients ever did want, you know, I would be happy to grind out a couple shots of wheatgrass. But there's there's I think that wheatgrass alkalines your body like at a super fast rate. So if anybody, you know, is really looking for that, you know, kind of like that next level, I'm happy to, you know, point them to articles and websites that have helped me kind of figure some of that stuff out. But yeah, I try to stay away from acidic foods and you know, and when people do the cleanse, you know, I've had people say, "Hey, can you still drink coffee?" And coffee is one of the most acidic things that you can drink. And I love coffee. It's been my biggest vice. So but yeah, yeah, anything that you can do that's yeah. Anyway, I'd love to give up coffee. So there we go.
Yeah,
Do when I do
don't
the
come from a
cleanse.
coffee now.
I know, right?
No,
Anyway,
I think it's really good to be aware of your coffee intake and how much coffee you are drinking, because obviously however much coffee you're drinking, that's, you know, probably taking away from your pure water intake, which is going to definitely benefit your body a lot more as just drinking, you know, pure water versus coffee. You're always having, you know, something other than water. There was something I was going to ask you about. Well, really along the lines of coffee and is really energy. A lot of people are seeking more energy. And so, you know, what I've noticed is doing any sort of a reset, whether it's Whole30 or just limiting processed foods in my diet. You know, it's about achieving, you know, better health and wanting to be, you know, for me, especially as I get older, I think more and more about, like, I don't want to just live, but I want to have a really good quality of life. Like, I want to be able to go do the 300-mile trek in France or Spain, you know, and, you know, be super active. So for me, it's about having a good quality of life, but most people are really seeking to have more energy. And that's what I've noticed about, you know, kind of juicing or adding more like whole foods to your diet is the change in the level of energy.
yeah, and for sure. And you know, being a coffee drinker, I've some days when I'm feeling low energy, I'll be like, oh, I'll just have another cup of coffee. And I'm like, but it never works, right? It's always that, it's kind of like the sugar cycle that people get into. It's like, oh, I'll just have some sugar. But then it's like the crash is even harder. But kind of going into it, you know, I still like to maybe pretend like it might work, but it never does. But yeah, so with coffee, and here's the other thing too that's kind of hard about coffee on your body is that again, there's something, I mean, obviously it's a diuretic, right? The caffeine and however the beans are processed, but there's something about the acid actually keeps your body or inhibits your body from absorbing um, like water from moisture. So it actually does something to the cells, you know, in itself. So if you think about being, you know, your body is what I think 80 or 90% water. So if
Mhm.
you're drinking coffee to get energy, but it's prohibiting the absorption of water, and water is what you're made of. You know what I'm saying? So it's, if you just kind of even just look at that, it's like it's almost like counterproductive. It's you know, and a lot of times, you know, because I think that the media says, oh, you know, coffee's energy. It's like it's just so easy
Mhm.
and fun to go to. But if you just look at like how we're designed as human beings, we're mostly made of water. That's what our body needs and craves, and that's more than likely what will give us the energy that we need. And I think they say that, you know, like a lot of times if you're um, sleepy or hungry, if you drink a huge glass of water, it
Mhm.
kind of suppresses the appetite a little bit. and you actually feel better, you know. It's yeah, so I don't know, that's kind of my view on coffee, but again, it's delicious.
Yeah, I think, go ahead, Rachel.
I was just going to say that I think that it's nice of you to say that you are a coffee drinker, because it's like what Kinda and I always say is that we know because we know, not because we know better. And
Right.
that is that we're always bombarded with tugs to do other than what we know is best for our optimal health, you know, whether it's for the quick gratification, because coffee does give you a little boost. And the more that you believe that, the more that you think you need it. And just like you were saying about coming off of the sugar, I'm on day 10 of Whole30 right now. And it's just now starting to be like where I can peek my head out from under the covers. I have enough wherewithal because we've done it enough times. With our women's group, we always do a Whole30 at the beginning of the year. But after the holidays, you know, I know that I've ate and drank far too much, and it's time to take it down a notch. And so I start back all over again, you know, being in the crappy mood and feeling tired and hungover. But I have been to the mountaintop and felt the clarity and the energy and the productivity that comes out of disciplining yourself. And so I believe in it wholeheartedly and think that it's something that while we will fall short in lots of ways all the time, it's still worth striving for over and over again, because we do see how it affects our brain, our mental health, our physical health, our emotional health, all of it.
Yeah, it's amazing how interconnected it is, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not about being, and that's what, you know, when people like, right, approach me or whatever, I'm like, it's not about, yeah, being perfect or doing it, you know, it's like what can you do to like improve your life, you know what I'm saying, or your body, or you know what I'm saying, like even if it's a little bit, it's great. Or even if you like doing the Whole30 and then you kind of, you know, like, you know, some months are great, some months are, you know, whatever. It's that's kind of how life is. It's not just like you arrive and then you're perfect forever, or that you make, you know, that change and it's, you know, it's like evolution. There's gonna be, you know, growing pains no matter, right, what it is, nutrition, mindfulness. Yeah. So
You never get there, and there's always room for improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we underestimate those small steps that we make, you know, and the small improvements along the way. We really underestimate the power of just the tiny change. A book that I just started reading recently is called Atomic Habits. And he talks about the power of the tiny change, just that 1% improvement. And if you made that 1% improvement every day, at the end of the year, you have this huge improvement. But I think sometimes like our attitude is like, go big or go home. You know, it's like,
Right.
if I don't make this big, huge change and, you know, all this stuff, then it's just like not worth it, you know? And I think the more we can change our mindset around that and just make those small, tiny little changes, if we could just start really small, micro, like the micronutrients, start with a micro change.
Yeah.
The power of the micro change, you know, like what it would actually do for us. And then we could do it.
Find the power in the little sprout.
Yeah, there you go. The mighty little sprout, right?
That's awesome. Is there anything we didn't talk to you about or ask you about that you can share with us about Living Foods or Living Foods Atlanta?
No, I mean, I would say that, yeah, if people are curious, or, you know, if they want to send me a direct message, I mean, there's all kinds of things that I've picked up along the way. There's obviously the wheatgrass I've kind of told you about. That's a huge like such a big thing. It's not even, you know, something that like I said, I offer, but if people really are curious and want to learn, I can share my knowledge, show them how to do that. There's another thing that I kind of came across. It's like a blue-green algae, which it's called E3 Live, and they have a website and all that stuff. I learned about it through the Living Foods Institute too, but it's just one of those additional little things, you know, that you know, like when you ask, it doesn't have to be all, but I always share a lot, and I feel like if one or two things resonates, then, you know, awesome. But yeah, and it's but it's like this, it's like a harvested blue-green algae, and you basically just take like a little shot a day, but it's like this like, I don't know, this huge source of, I don't know, I don't know all the science behind it other than it makes you feel great, you know. But yeah, so things like that, that's what I would say. It's like if people, you know, are curious about anything and I can guide them or help them, point them, you know, just to make small changes or anything that resonates, I'm happy to do that for them.
I want to tell you really quick that I've been wanting to grow my own wheatgrass for so long because
That's awesome.
so the story is that I'm a midwife, and the midwife that trained me is 75 years old. And when I used to train with her, she had trays of wheatgrass on her kitchen counter, and she swears by it. And she was religious about her wheatgrass. To this day, she's 75 years old. She still goes dancing. She's in Las Vegas, that's where I'm from. But she goes dancing out to the bands, and you wouldn't believe that she's 75 years old. And
yeah, it's like a miracle. It's like a miracle, like plant. It's unreal.
And it grows pretty fast too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The biggest thing you'll want to, if you do start growing it yourself, is to get, when I talked to Vonnie, my sprout guy, he's like, getting good quality dirt is the key, because he also sells wheatgrass. Like I've actually bought the trays of wheatgrass like you're talking about, because I mean, yeah, anyway, but it's beautiful. And he said the dirt is key. He said it's better. I mean, obviously, if you were going to grow it, he said just dirt from your yard, because he said the dirt a lot of times that you buy from Home Depot is already dead, you know, and because the grass is absorbing the nutrients in the dirt, if you want high quality wheatgrass, you need to make sure you get like high quality dirt. And I think it's like Farmer D's. I don't know if they're still in business, but I do think now, like Compost Now, which is like a small business in Atlanta. And that's another thing I do, is I compost all of my, you know, food scraps, because that's another kind of one issue that we can do globally, is composting that keeps the food out of the landfills, because once the food goes in the landfills, it does create methane. So I mean, I do try to make small little changes like that. But back to the wheatgrass, yeah, the dirt is or the soil, I should say, is super important. But no, wheatgrass, you think sprouts are a miracle, man, wheatgrass, we could have a whole other conversation about that one, because at the Living Foods Institute, they were really big on that. We had to do wheatgrass in the morning and wheatgrass at the end of the day, and then there's some other protocols that you do with wheatgrass that will like literally like boost your nutrition like over the top. So yeah, I love wheatgrass. Yeah, in fact, I have I'm down there just grinding away, because they have like a hand crank one. The wheatgrass juicers that are the electronic ones are like $400 or $500. They're pretty expensive. So I was like, well, I'll just do the hand crank one for right now. But the hand crank one, yeah. So. And you know who was also a big wheatgrass person was Arden's Garden, which I'm sure a lot of people in Atlanta are familiar with that. But you can go in there and get like a shot of wheatgrass. And she was also, I think, looked amazing in her 70s and 80s. And she'd been doing wheatgrass for like 40 years.
Right?
Yeah, I heard that. I think she had complications.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh. That would be a cool field trip. We should go, we'll go with Catherine to Vonnie. Let's go check out the sprouts, man. That sounds fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Catherine. It was really nice to meet you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm so glad to share with you and connect in this way for sure.
So tell us real quick your Facebook and Instagram handles so people can find you.
So my Instagram is at Living Foods Atlanta, and my Facebook. So I was, and my website is livingfoodsatlanta.com. And what I noticed today about my Facebook is that it's at Living Foods Atlanta, but it has two I's in it. So I'm trying to figure out so I would point people to my Instagram page just so there's no, because I've had people look for it on Facebook and have a little trouble, but I think it's got two I's in the living part of the spelling. So I need to change that. I just don't want to direct people incorrectly. But if they're easily accessible by, on Instagram, it's at Living Foods Atlanta, or, and even maybe if you did Facebook, if you did Living Foods Atlanta, then you just Googled Catherine Brunson, which is me, you might be able to find it, but I'll try to change that today. And then my website is, livingfoodsatlanta.com.
Awesome.
And you can, my phone number's on social media, so you can always text me or email me. I'm happy to answer any direct questions people have, for sure.
Cool. Well, we'll share your Instagram and your Facebook too. And I also want to let everybody know who's watching, and we'll post the details when we post the video, that Catherine has generously offered to do a 3-day meal replacement, which is 12 bottles of her Living Foods Atlanta smoothies at a value of $80. So we'll put the details up in the post so y'all can enter the giveaway for your awesome smoothies. And so I think we just want to also talk about the events that we have coming up. So stay with us for just a second there, Catherine, and we'll just tell everybody what we got coming up. Rachel, do you want to say what we got coming up?
You know what we have coming up.
Well, we have Self-Centered Women coming up in a couple weeks. That our next group for Self-Centered Women starts on Sunday, January 31st. That's our year-long journey. It's our group. It's completely online, so you can be anywhere and join in. And we do a once a month call where we all meet on the call, and it's really just kind of a deep dive into your self-care. We talk about the 4 C's of self-care, and really just kind of uncover during this year-long process the behaviors, the mindsets, the beliefs, all the things that kind of hold us back from making changes in all of those areas, and so that we are better able to, as we said at the beginning, really, is when we feel better, when we eat well, sleep well, meditate and exercise, we feel better and we do better. So that's really a little bit about Self-Centered Women. So again, that starts on January 31st. Then we have the workshop on February 21st. That's online. That'll be a Zoom workshop online. 1 o'clock, is that what we said? 1 o'clock, February 21st. And that's going to be our self-love session. Love the one you're with, you. How you can cultivate practices to really practice more self-love, self-compassion, all those good things, self-care. And then our retreat, our spring retreat, which will be Friday, March 19th. And that'll be up in Canton, Georgia from 9 to 4. So if you're in the Atlanta area, we would love to have you join us for the retreat. Did I forget anything, Rachel?
Just February 1st, we're starting our challenge, which is our free challenge on Facebook and Instagram for the month of February, our self-love challenge. And so every day you'll have a journal prompt, tips, inspirational quotes to inspire you to spend more time taking care of yourself and nurturing yourself through the month of February.
Yes, I almost forgot that. Awesome. Catherine, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really enlightening. I've learned a lot, and I definitely want to check out more about the mung beans and your smoothies and all of that.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. It was great.
Tag you when I got my wheatgrass trays growing.
Yes, do. And I'm happy to point you in the right, whatever help you need from me, for sure. I'm happy to help if I can, for sure.
Awesome. Thank you. And
Thank you guys.
we always end a call or a group or a workshop saying 1, 2, 3, be self-centered, because that's what we're all striving for, being self-centered. So ready on 3. 1, 2, 3. Be self-centered.
Self-centered.
Thank
That's
you guys.
awesome.
Awesome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.